China's military is becoming a formidable force. In 2022, it had a standing army of just over 2 million. It spent $242 billion on its defense budget, second only to the US, and it has the largest navy in the world. But no one is suggesting China has any intention of invading the UK, and yet MI5 and the FBI say China poses the biggest security threat to the West over the next decade. Why?
Well, there's a concern that Chinese global military activity could, for example, increase the accessibility of more advanced weapons to countries that otherwise wouldn't have them. So where the UK operates, it now has to take into consideration new types of weaponry that its adversaries or other local actors might be using. With regards to Russia and China, there's an ever-closening relationship of those two countries, though it is not an alliance. Nevertheless, both countries operate in cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region, and they also work together to develop more advanced capabilities like early warning systems.
So China is growing in military strength and reach, and by 2035, experts say China plans for its military to be able to fight and win wars in the Indo-Pacific region, with a plan to replace the US as the primary regional security guarantor there. It wants, they say, to alter the international rules-based system to a might equals right system. So how does that affect the UK?
A majority of international trade in the region runs through maritime shipping lanes in the Indo-Pacific region to and from China, but also other countries in the Indo-Pacific. And so any disturbance to this shipping and to this trade will have a direct follow-on impact on not just the UK, but countries across Europe and across the world.
But China isn't just a military giant, it's an economic one too. It's the largest source of imports for the UK, and the concern is that China's economic rise is displacing the economic competitiveness of the West.
What we're talking about here is unfair competition. There is a lack of reciprocity in trade between China and the UK, as well as other countries around the world. And there's also a concern here about how prosperity and security are increasingly overlapping, and that the line between the two is blurred. And so there's questions also about how China has, in certain ways, including in defense, been able to modernize and advance its technological capability at such a quick rate that it has over the past few decades.
The UK and US say it's down to predatory investments, forced technology acquisitions, and industrial espionage. So China could be a threat to our economic prosperity, and that affects our security. The challenge China poses to the UK, though, isn't straightforward. It's about power and dominance.
This isn't about conflict in the next year or 2 years or 3 years. That could happen due to misunderstanding or miscalculation. Certainly in the Indo-Pacific, there is a greater saturation of the airspace in the maritime domain. But on the other hand, I don't think that there is an immediate interest in China to enter into a direct conflict with certainly not the United States or any other countries. This is, I think, more about how to deal with the really gray areas, the difficult side of the relationship, which is that we all need China for trade and prosperity. But on the other hand, we need to find a way to do that and yet also protect national economies and national competitiveness.
And no country in the West has figured out how to do that yet. Claire Sadler, Forces News. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.